What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to our content, we create content like what you're watching right now, simply to educate and engage individuals like yourselves on mental health awareness and suicide prevention through pop culture. My name is Captain Nostalgia. I'm a writer, podcaster, and the director of our film festival, Terrific Hope. First film festival of its kind to be horror-centric and mental health focused. If you guys would like to submit your short films, feature films, or screenplays, click the links in the descriptions below. If you guys would like more information about who we are as an organization, more of our podcasts, movie reviews like this, and links to our social media, how to support us financially, and most importantly, our mental health resource library, those links as well are going to be in the descriptions below. Despite the movie that I'm reviewing today tells me never to say the next two words that are coming out of my mouth, we're going to be talking about So Vamp today. If you guys would like to check out this movie, it is going to be streaming on Shudder beginning Tuesday, August 23rd. So Vamp tells the story of a young man who happens to get bitten by a vampire and kind of is thrusted into this good vampires versus bad vampires war that is going on under the belly of the city of the movie. Let me just start by saying, in some ways, this movie is a coming-of-age story, similar to what I would argue is one of the most underrated rom-coms of the last 10 years, Love, Simon. On top of all the vampire lore that this movie is trying to attack and essentially trying to give its own spin on, this movie is also telling the story of a young gay teenager that is essentially trying to find his footing in his voice while he also dreams about becoming a drag queen. I liked that aspect of the story because it felt like it gave these characters depth right out the back. I mean, one of the very first scenes are our protagonist, Brandon, played by Chris Asimos. And again, if you guys are new to our channel, I am notoriously bad at pronouncing names, so if you come across this, Mr. Asimos, I am really sorry if I mispronounced your name. His best friend, Carly, played by Bleby. I issue a name apology if I mispronounced that. Essentially, getting back to my original point, the two of them are having conversations about how Landon is really kind of just dreaming about being a drag queen, and it's a really beautiful thing to kind of see a dream kind of come to fulfillment. In the end, spoiler alert. I don't really think it's a spoiler alert because it's kind of bookended really perfectly with that conversation and that kind of end, but there's a lot of other things that happen in the end, and that's kind of where I think this movie kind of loses me a little bit. I guess pet peeves within the medium of film is where the storyteller presents a story, an ending to the story that they've been telling that just feels so adequately satisfying, and yet somehow they just kind of have to keep unraveling it and see how long they can bring these characters, or what other scenarios you can do that just kind of feel like added, like deleted scenes that got added onto an otherwise perfect ending. A handful of movies that I can probably name that actually go this route, but I can now add So Vamp to that. I alluded to earlier, the whole drag queen subplot of this movie is one of like 7 that we add onto this. Honestly, the first, the way this movie properly ends before it kind of showcases these characters after the events of the main narrative just kind of feel like really filler. It just kind of feels like the writers and director really wanted to just say, you know what, this is a perfect story, but we need a longer runtime. It really gets under my skin because it feels like it cheapens the experience of an otherwise perfect conclusion to a really fun story. Now, what I will say about the proper, what I will call proper ending to this movie does feel rushed. There are aspects of this movie that I do feel like could have been really benefited from an additional 15 to 20 minutes, because the climax of this movie comes in and ends literally as quick as it comes. It's really sad to me because what I loved so much about this movie was the fact that there's a lot of fun that is just to be had with these characters. I think with Bleby and Asimos really have a great solid chemistry. Asimos pretty much has great chemistry with everyone he shares the screen with. Molly Ferguson and Brandon Cooley. Performances in this one are I wouldn't necessarily say by a general audience standpoint, these are good performances. They're really leaning into the camp of this, and that's kind of what I really enjoy about this. So I feel like from a general audience perspective, the performances that are in here are just really stale, really tiresome. But if you're coming in and watching this from an angle of something like Trauma or The Room, or just something that's a really fun movie that you would feel like is supposed to be a campy, borderline that like grindhouse midnight movie, the performances in this one are really fun, and they add a lot of just because you can really tell everyone is having a lot of fun while they're making this, and it really shows. As I previously mentioned, I really liked this Vamp's take on the vampire lore and mythology, and along the way, I think that they also bring up a lot of forgotten history with vampires that I had never actually known, and I thought it would add a really unique spin on this. That not only is this a fun vampire movie, but it's also a history on the vampires. I say history of the vampire lore is because this is a LGBTQIA plus film that centers on a lot of bullying with the LGBT community, as well as kind of, as I previously mentioned, with Landon's story, essentially trying to find your own voice as a gay teenager, and getting the aspect of learning that a lot of the histories and kind of the intersections between LGBTQIA plus history and culture with vampires was a really refreshing take for me. Also, I think this movie looks gorgeous. I guess there are some parts, but the color palettes really pop in this. There's a lot of pinks, there's a lot of greens, there's a lot of blues, and when these colors are present, they just overtake the entire scenery, and that was such a refreshing, just visually satisfying experience to have. I'll say, all in all, when it comes to this movie, I feel like I'm a little bit torn down the line. While I did find this film to be really creative, as someone that does not like vampire movies, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I wish this movie was longer, but also at the same time, I feel like the color palette is really beautiful. A lot of my issues come down to how certain characters are treated in this movie, while also at the same time how some of the story feels rushed and underwhelming. Like, the climax is really unsatisfying because it feels like it builds up to a lot of things that just kind of end up falling flat. In the end, I'm going to go ahead and give So Vamp a 3 out of 5. I think this movie does a lot of fun, creative decisions, but again, like I said, it ultimately falls flat with some of it, just how it handles some of its characters and its narrative. Originally for this video, I had lined up a guest from the LGBTQIA plus community to actually handle some of the mental health and bullying aspects that this film addresses, because I, as a cisgender straight man, did not feel comfortable addressing this or even touching this topic. Unfortunately, my guest, Sasha Mawin, the Princess of Darkness herself, actually ended up falling ill shortly after I approached her to do this video, and so I'm just going to go ahead and plug the Trevor Project right here. You guys can also go to trevorproject.com/web chat to talk with someone, a counselor or a peer specialist, right from their website. You can also call at 1-866-488-7386, or you can also text 678-678. And just remember that your life has value. And if this movie has taught me anything, is that there are quite a lot of individuals within the LGBTQIA plus community that have experienced bullying, homophobia, and other just forms of bullying. And I just want to let you know that you're not alone, and your story matters. You matter. So please stay with us. And for anyone else watching this right now, and you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, click the links in our show notes below and check out our mental health resource library. And again, you matter. Please stay with us. And as always, you guys can check out So Vamp when it hits Shudder beginning this Tuesday, August 23rd. Make sure that you guys hit the subscribe button below and bell icon. And once you guys have checked out this movie, let me know in the show notes below what you guys thought about this. And yeah, have a great night, guys.